The story I'm going to tell you today took place in 1957, has never been solved, and the case remains open. On February 25th, 1957, a small boy was found inside a box and all his clothing had been removed, revealing the torture he had been forced to endure. Officials estimated the child's age to be between 3 and 7 years old. The boy appeared to be freshly groomed despite showing signs of prolonged and extensive physical torment. He had been given a recent haircut, most likely post-mortem, as clumps of hair were found on him. His nails had been trimmed, his eyebrows had been plucked, and he was wrapped in a cotton blanket, then stuffed into a JCPenney cardboard box that had contained a bassinet at one point. The police believe the boy's cause of death was repeated blunt force trauma to the head. The boy has never been claimed by anyone, and no clear suspects have ever been identified. The only act of love the boy seemed to have ever had was being freshly groomed and wrapped in a blanket on a freezing cold day. He was found in the woods in Fox Chase, Philadelphia by a young man who was checking his muskrat traps. Fearing the police would confiscate his traps and/or fine him, the young man did not report the finding and resumed checking his traps. A few days later, another young man saw a bunny run across the road. The young man knew there were traps in the area, so he pulled over and sifted through the underbrush to make sure the bunny was okay and not trapped. While he was in the middle of looking for this bunny, he stumbled upon the boy in a cardboard box. Although the young man was afraid of contacting the police, he ultimately decided to report what he had found after hearing about the disappearance of Mary Jane Barker. The police responded to the crime scene and were hopeful that the boy would quickly be identified. After all, he was someone's child. Someone must have loved him. When detectives arrived and saw the boy, their hopes quickly faded. The boy was covered head to toe with both old and new bruises. His fingertips were pruny as if he had been in water. He had surgical scars to his ankle, chin, and groin area and had clearly been malnourished. Authorities promptly opened an investigation on February 26, 1957. Despite being fingerprinted, police were unable to find a match. The crime scene was extensively searched for any clues repeatedly by 270 police academy recruits. They would find a men's blue corduroy cap and a handkerchief with a letter G on the corner, and finally, a children's scarf. These discoveries would only pose more questions than answers, as they would lead to nowhere fast. The boy was photographed fully clothed in a seated position to depict what he may have looked like alive, hoping that someone would come forward and claim the boy, but no one ever has. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released a forensic facial reconstruction of the victim on March 21, 2016. There have been multiple theories throughout the years. The first involves a foster home that was 1.5 miles away from where the boy had been found. This theory was brought on by a Philadelphia medical examiner named Remington Bristow in 1960. He was persistent and pursued the case until his death in 1993. Bristow contacted a psychic who told him to be on the lookout for a house that looked like the old mansion a married couple had turned into a foster home. When he brought the psychic to the crime scene in Philadelphia, she led him directly to that home. When the couple and the daughter moved out, they had an estate sale that Remington Bristow attended. There he would find a JCPenney bassinet and blankets that were similar to the one the boy had been wrapped in. He would theorize that the boy was the illegitimate son of the man's stepdaughter, and the boy's demise had been accidental. In order to not expose his stepdaughter as an unwed mother, they disposed him and left. This theory would be investigated in 1998 by a Philadelphia lieutenant. He located the foster home father and questioned him and his stepdaughter, whom he had married, and the investigation was closed. They were no longer persons of interest. The second theory was brought up by a woman named Martha. She alleged that her mother had purchased the boy, whose real name was Jonathan, from a couple in 1954. According to Martha, the boy went through extreme physical, emotional, and sexual abuse for the next 2.5 years of his life. One night, while the three of them were eating dinner, the boy had vomited his meal of baked beans and subsequently was severely beaten, having his head slammed on the floor until he was almost unconscious. After he was given a bath where he would slip into a sleep he would never wake up from. This information was especially alarming to authorities since that would explain his pruny fingers and the baked beans that were found in his stomach during the autopsy. These were both details the police had never released to the public. Martha stated that her mother had forced her to assist in covering up the crime. Once they got to Fox Chase, Philadelphia, they exited the car, and as they were getting ready to remove the boy's body from the trunk, a Good Samaritan stopped to ask if they were okay. Martha said she was ordered to stand in front of the license plate to conceal the plate number. Once her mother assured the Good Samaritan they were okay, he drove off. This story was supported by a confidential testimony provided by a man in 1957 who said he saw the boy being placed into a previously discarded cardboard box. Despite all these details, authorities were unable to verify Martha's story. Neighbors who had access to the house denied ever seeing a boy living in the house, and Martha also suffered from severe mental illness, which made her credibility questionable. Another theory I came across is that someone had raised him as a girl, which would explain why it has been so difficult to find his identity. Frank Bender, a forensic artist and co-founder of a private group of retired cops and profilers dedicated to solving crimes, created a composite sketch of the boy as a girl using the long clumps of hair clippings found at the scene. By looking at photographs of the boy in evidence, he stated that the boy's eyebrows had been plucked, altering his appearance to be more feminine. The boy's burial site was originally at Potter's Field. However, when he was exhumed in 1998 for DNA extraction, he was reburied at Ivy Hill Cemetery in Cedar Brook, Philadelphia, on a large donated plot. The grave has a large headstone with the words, "America's Unknown Child." To this day, the residents of Cedar Brook keep the grave decorated with flowers and toys. If you have any information or believe you are somehow related to this boy, call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children 24-hour hotline at 1-800-THE-LOST. That's 1-800-843-5678. The link to their website will also be provided in the description below.